Masai Ujiri had his closing season press conference yesterday, and he had a lot to say about the Toronto Raptors' plans heading into this year's offseason to really turn around this roster and put us back on an upward trajectory. So we're to break down the Raptors' master plan that Masai Ujiri kind of revealed yesterday throughout a bunch of quotes, through a bunch of comments. He had a lot to say about a lot of different players on this Raptors group. But before we dive into that, folks, again, I know the Raptors season's over. The hype is very much at a low at this point in terms of Toronto Raptors fandom and things like that. But frankly, this offseason is going to be madness. The draft is going to have a serious implications on this team's future. And I think free agency is going to be a little bit more crazy than people expect. So if you're part of the 51% that haven't hit that subscribe button, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button because we're going to keep you up to date with everything happening regarding this team. But let's dive into what's been going on. What Masai Ujiri had to say about this Toronto Raptors group. Because frankly, he had some interesting comments. And the first one that was addressed, and it was a really weird question asked by Michael Grange, basically, worded poorly, but Masai Ujiri kind of got what he was saying. But obviously, the Raptors might not keep their draft pick for this season. We tanked to close out the year, so we have the odds, so we can potentially, keep that draft pick, get things going. But obviously, and maybe not on purpose, injuries, with RJ, with IQ, with Pirtle, with Scottie missing as many games as they did. That's the what's going to happen. You're going to lose a ton of games. But regarding the chances, I think we have a 45% chance of keeping our draft pick. If we don't get it, he was asked Masai Ujiri if the plan was to potentially tank a couple more seasons, essentially. Not necessarily tank, but the expectation to have a lower round draft pick, not be competing into the playoffs, for the next couple years. And he answered, again, it was poorly asked. It was weirdly asked, weirdly worded, but Masai Ujiri didn't say a hard no to that. Basically, came out and said on his commitment to a longer-term rebuild, open to drafting in 2025 and 2026, high up if they don't get their 2024 pick. I think we'll see how the year starts and plays out. We're going to give these players an opportunity to play. Masai Ujiri says he's not worried about the pick conveying or it's not conveying. Either you get a high pick this year or you get a high pick at some point, or you don't, which means we're all good. So we understand what picking early is. So basically, what Masai Ujiri has come out and said in regards to a longer-term rebuild. And, to get under the undertones of the question, because obviously Masai Ujiri can't come out and say, yeah, we're going to try to lose and try to get a high draft pick for the next 2 years. He didn't say that, and that wasn't the undertone of his question, but he says, if this team is good, if this team shows promise to start off next year, they'll lean into it. They'll try to make that push. They'll try to keep things rocking, but don't be shocked. Don't be surprised if the team is still struggling, not in a great position, and we'll probably know by, a couple months into next season where this team is at in terms of its development, in terms of its growth. And obviously we don't get our draft pick for this year. We lose out on a top potential talent. Now, that means we get to keep our draft pick for next year, which some people are saying is a more loaded draft class, but Masai directly addressed that as well, saying, referring to the 2013 class as a draft class that people refer to as something that's really bad, but in that draft class, there was multiple All-Stars. I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo was there, Oladipo was one of the higher picks, Rudy Gobert was there as well. So, regardless, we get the picks in 2024 or 2025. Basically, Masai Ujiri says it's on the front office, it's on that group to figure out who the all-stars are going to be and take a swing and get them. So that's basically Masai Ujiri's approach to that whole draft. Not committing to, hey, this is going to be a rough go. We've seen some franchises, some organizations come out and say there's going to be multiple years of, tank and rebuilding and stuff. Masai Ujiri isn't committing to that, but he's also not going to try to rush things. That was a big theme in his comments. But basically, he says there's a Masai Ujiri on the necessary of patience. He says we're going to do what's best for the team. Use our instincts and our experience. Everything we do here is patience. We have to look at the future of this team and be patient. Specifically patient with the young players and where they might get to. So, yeah, a lot was said in this press conference about patience, and he didn't say, patience for the sake of it. He doesn't plan on being horrible for the next 6 years or anything like that, but definitely doesn't want to go the approach of, hey, we're in a position where if maybe we can make a trade and facilitate this push a little bit first. The Toronto Raptors are in a spot where they need their younger guys to really develop and figure out what they have in these players. Again, some of them might develop into something great, but if you rush things, trade away these young pieces, then you might not let them mature, and then you're selling low on them because they haven't fully blossomed what they're going to be. But also, if they are in a really nice place, if they're doing really well, and it looks like they can compete, if you make one or two moves, maybe you'll do that. But basically, Masai Ujiri was asked about analyzing other rebuilds, analyzing not just in the Toronto NBA, but also other sports. Masai Ujiri's been taking a look at all of those. He's going to use his instincts and experience to sort of figure out the pace in terms of which to rebuild. Because frankly, a lot of people have said that, hey, the Raptors may have rushed their sort of win now mode after the Tampa tank season because, frankly, the year after the Tampa season, the Raptors made the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference, and that shocked a lot of people. That surprised a lot of people. And then Masai Ujiri, probably reasonably so, thought this team could be a team that could compete at least. They made a couple moves, made a couple win now situations, trading for Jakob Poeltl, a couple seasons after. Obviously, more stuff happened in between, but that team didn't end up maturing to the point where it made sense to really complete that rebuild. And, rushing that sort of push to win now, I don't think it was a bad gamble, but it did not work out for the Toronto Raptors. Obviously, you can see where we're at here at this point, but Masai Ujiri is going to play it by ear with this current group. And he says the toughest part about these rebuilds, the toughest part about all these things is having a young potential superstar like what we have in Scottie Barnes. So that's basically his kind of approach to everything that's going on along those lines. And then ended up talking about, the culture, because that was a huge topic of discussion coming into the season. The vibes are bad last year. It's the reason Nick Nurse got fired. It's the reason why Masai Ujiri called out Pascal Siakam, basically selfish stuff, early on in the preseason press conferences. But he said, maybe it was a little bit unfair to former players. Maybe it came off as wrong how I used that, but I was trying to be very aggressive with our team, trying to get us back to who we are, playing for each other and winning. And he says now Darko was instilled a certain way, and we're going to move with that. I think the culture is one of the things that we've had that have held us from falling apart through tough times like this. I'm very proud of everybody staying with and grinding it through. So Masai Ujiri, he also mentioned how he was proud of Darko Rajakovic's job, despite the fact, again, it was a tumultuous year. It wasn't the greatest situation. They probably didn't set him up for a ton of success, but Darko Rajakovic, he was very happy with how he managed this team, which is nice to see the GM support Darko. Some people are calling for Darko's head because of how bad the season went, but frankly, this team didn't have enough talent, especially with all the injuries and stuff, to really blame Darko, to scapegoat Darko for how the season really went. There were some highs as well from this season, so I don't know. I'm not stressed about that. Also praised how he developed guys like Scottie Barnes, some of these younger dudes coming in. So nice to see the support for Darko and getting back to that culture, the culture reset we're seeing. But basically, he also talked about how on the last few years of free agency, we just haven't done very well of assessing what those fits could be. We 100% need to do a better job at finding some of those players sometimes. The around-the-edge players. Bobby Webster's the big theme of his most recent interview, how they're going to make a ton of minor moves that they just have to continuously get right. He says, as always, this is the draft. The best talent is where do you attack the draft. Our team is not at the point where we can pick and choose. He does say that a backup point guard and a wing defender and a younger backup big are needed, whether it's in the draft or free agency. Again, you lose Christian Koloko, you lose Jontay Porter. He had a lot to say about Christian Koloko being a key piece that he had confidence in and being a cornerstone, of this sort of Raptors rebuild. But unfortunately, obviously, health had him knocked out of this Toronto Raptors team. Jontay Porter is another example of a guy that, they took a swing on but ended up leaving. Otto Porter Jr. got injured. All those guys were named throughout this press conference, but there are definitely holes for this team. But in the NBA draft specifically, they're going to be looking at talent. Which makes sense. We aren't in a position where we need to pick and choose to win now and find perfect roles and perfect placements. But then he also says, in regards to patience, he's patient but doesn't want to go for 6 years. He hopes he makes the right decisions and picks the right players. We're going to be patient and starting off with the most difficult one to find, a guy like Scottie. So they already have their star. I already alluded to his comments there. But the interesting part, one of his interesting quotes from here is Ochai has the potential to be one of the best defenders in the NBA. He says you might not see it yet, but that's why you do a rebuild and develop to see if you can get him there. So I like that high praise for Ochai Agbaji. We'll probably be talking about him a ton during this offseason. But it's a lot of interesting quotes, a lot of interesting sort of comments from Masai. Basically, to sum it all up, encouraging the fans to be patient. We have this flexibility for a reason because we can watch and grow these young players to see what they can do. And, if we end up winning some games early on next year and it looks good, if Scottie's taking that leap, RJ's taking that leap, maybe we'll see this roster construction be facilitated a little bit faster. But Masai Ujiri is going to give him that chance, but is also sort of open to building this team year by year, which I like because you take a look at the New York Knicks, for example, which is a team in the Atlantic Division. We see them play all the time, but for decades, they for most of my life, they would sort of build something quick and then trade all their assets in order to make a win now move, and it'd be too quick, too rushed, and then they just end up sucking within a year. That's just what was the cycle of the New York Knicks. But then, they had that new management and Leon Rose coming in, and basically they did suck for 2-3 seasons. It was kind of messy, but they slowly rebuilt. And now they're the 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. They got a star in Jalen Brunson. They made the right moves. They made the steady right moves, and now they're at the top of the mountain, or one of the tops of the mountain in the East, and potentially a couple moves away from a championship. If not, maybe one move. But that's the Knicks. I don't want to gas up the Knicks too much, but I like that approach from the Toronto Raptors. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. The Orlando Magic are another example. Jeff Weltman went down there. It took a couple years to really put things together, but then, now they're in a position where things are working. So Masai Ujiri addressed him specifically by name in this press conference as well. But let me know what you guys think about all that in the comment section down below. You guys have the best thing as far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I'm signing out. Cheers.